Welcome, everybody, to Postgame Takeaways with Inside ND Sports. I'm Tyler James. He's the one and only Eric Hansen. I'm back in LaPorte. Eric's back in South Bend, and we're here to share our postgame takeaways from Notre Dame's 66-7 dismantling of Purdue. Eric, this one was over by halftime when Notre Dame pulled starting quarterback Riley Leonard. What was your biggest takeaway from the bounce-back victory for the Irish?
Wow, overwhelming numbers. Notre Dame responded in every way they needed to in this game. I think it kind of creates a confusing big picture, even more confusing now that they bounced back, but impressive in every way in terms of Notre Dame kind of recalibrating what might be possible for their season. How about you?
I don't think I can start without saying Purdue is bad.
Okay.
That seemed
well,
very,
they were picked 18th.
that seemed very apparent today. Purdue's defense was out of position. It took poor angles, didn't tackle well. The offense had to rely on passing too much and couldn't protect Hudson Card. So virtually nothing was going right for Purdue today. But in addition to that, I think a motivated Notre Dame team appears to be a dangerous one. Now, the problem is that happened a week too late after losing to Northern Illinois last week. But it was really impressive from my standpoint how Notre Dame performed both on offense and defense and responded to the loss last week. Sort of what you would hope, but I think after last week, so many of us were just like, I don't really know what to expect. I think many of us thought Notre Dame would win, but certainly not as demonstratively as it did tonight.
Well, and I think a second takeaway for me was the whole Riley Leonard storyline, which I know you wrote quite extensively about. And I mean, I didn't exclude him from my story, but that was the centerpiece of your story.
Mm-hmm.
From this standpoint, he showed a lot of toughness mentally and physically for a guy that was reported by some media outlets not to even be available for the game, and speculated by a lot of people that wouldn't even be able to be two-dimensional in his play. He was lowering his shoulder. I thought he set the tone with his toughness, and I think he took a step toward being the quarterback he has to be later in the season. I'm not saying he's there yet, and really the game plan, especially early when it was still a game and Purdue was trying to bring pressure and so forth, and he had to get the ball out quick. You know, he executed that. There's still a lot that he has to show, but I thought he took a big step in the right direction today.
Yeah, we got asked, I think that was Monday on Football Never Sleeps, about Riley Leonard's toughness. And
we're living up to that name of that show. It's not just a clever name.
And to me, like, it was a reminder. It's like, oh, yeah, like Notre Dame fans don't have this extensive knowledge of Riley Leonard. Like, I think you and I were like, no, Riley Leonard is tough. Like, you can't question his toughness. Like, I understand if you're questioning his ability to throw the football down the field, but his toughness to me shouldn't be questioned. I think that was proved today. Does he need to get better in terms of throwing the ball down the field? Absolutely. But Notre Dame didn't need him to do that today. And it needed Riley Leonard to gain ground on the run, which he was able to do repeatedly. I know folks want to see Riley Leonard looking like some sort of Drake May out there, but that's not going to happen right now. So I think you have to take the incremental improvement, see that improvement, understand it, and sort of have some patience. I know that's not what many people want to hear, but I think what Riley Leonard can do with his legs is an extreme. It amplifies what Notre Dame can do on offense if he can put everything together in the passing game. And not even, he doesn't have to be a great passer necessarily, but if he can be a good one, what he can do on the ground and throwing the ball, if those are the combinations of things that are there, that can make this offense really hard to stop.
And I know that it wasn't, I mean, the game wasn't a game anymore when Steve Angeli came in, but I think it's comforting to see Steve Angeli playing well, that he hasn't put his head down, that he is trying to improve, and that if something were to happen to Riley Leonard, you feel pretty good about what Steve Angeli can give you.
Yeah, I mean, life's kind of easy for Steve Angeli right now, right? Like everyone wants to see him. He gets thrown in there. It's 42-0. I'm just gonna sling it if I'm Steve Angeli, and that's what he was doing, and did a good job of doing it. Certainly the level of competition, even though it might have been the same players for Purdue out there, like that Purdue defense was only playing for pride at that point.
If they had
they
might have been playing for the NIL scraps.
It is encouraging to see Steve Angeli continue to look sharp, but I also think you can't make too much of it either. The other thing I thought offensively to mention was that big plays are going to continue to keep coming in the running game. Expect Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price to keep breaking long runs. Love got everything started with scoring with the 48-yard touchdown run. Price ended the first half essentially with a 70-yard touchdown run. You can't, if you're Mike Denbrock, you can't write those plays into the script to be executed in the way they were, but you have to make sure to keep giving them opportunities to make things happen. And I mean, that's 3 games in a row where we've seen some sort of explosive plays coming from the running game from either one of those guys. And so it seems like that's just going to be part of what Notre Dame's offense is, and they have to make sure that there's enough chances for those guys to increase the amount of times it's able to happen.
Career high 109 yards on 10 carries for Jeremiah Love. We saw him split out as a receiver quite a bit today. We saw 2 backs in the backfield on one occasion. And people say, well, wow, only 10 carries. I mean, the game got away from Notre Dame, so they played 5 running backs today.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus Freeman said it was a good game for everybody, and just about everybody did play that was on the roster that was healthy. We saw 12 players make their Notre Dame debut today, including 8 freshmen.
Yeah, and both the quarterbacks, Kenny Minchie and TJ Carr, playing in the fourth quarter. So all 4 quarterbacks played today. So everyone was getting some action. Some guys were pressed into more high leverage situations due to injuries. I think that's worth mentioning. Certainly yes. Today, those injuries didn't matter, but they could impact Notre Dame down the road. Viper Jordan Botello, center Ashton Craig, and right guard Billy Strouth went down with injuries. Botello was carted off the field. Strouth was carted up the tunnel. Strouth had a boot on his right foot. Ashton Craig, when I saw him in the second half, didn't have anything wrapped or anything, so I'm not exactly sure what body part he was dealing with. It looked like he might have got his knee rolled up on. So you hope that those guys aren't going to have long-term injuries.
Right. And we don't have specifics on the injuries because nobody asked about them in the press conference.
Correct.
Maybe they wouldn't have told us, but.
Right. And well, that's sort of been the request of Notre Dame with its injury policy to not ask about injuries, but so it makes for some weird situations when it comes to that. But we should know Monday, according to the Notre Dame injury policy of who's available this week. They've been pretty good about that so far. Jordan Faison was available tonight, but did not actually play much at all. If at all, I didn't go back to check if he played at all, but he was not a part of the offense when it mattered with the first team offense. I think he was more of a in case of emergency guy, but he was dressed and on the sideline, but did not play after missing the Northern Illinois game with an ankle injury. Anything else worth highlighting, you think, Eric, before we get out of here?
Faison did not play according to Notre Dame, but sometimes those are off, but he did not play. I will know tomorrow when we do the Pro Football Focus. Well, I want to say a couple things. One, the defense played great. 38 rushing yards. They outrushed Purdue 368 to 38. The 162 yards that Purdue put up, there's one team in the Brian Kelly, Marcus Freeman era that had fewer than that, and that was Tennessee State, the only FCS team that Notre Dame has ever played, or at least since there has been an FCS.
Mm-hmm. Because
they played like South Bend Apothecary, and I'm sure they're below that level, but that was like in the 1910s or something. And the performance of the guys that came in for those injured players, it was seamless. Boubacar Traore played great at Viper, and he also played the other end with Josh Burnham being out. He had an interception for a touchdown, really looked good. I thought the two offensive linemen who got beaten out for starting positions, Pat Coogan is now playing center. Rocco Spindler was playing the right guard for Billy Schrouth. I would try to watch those guys a lot when they were in there, and I thought they did a pretty good job filling in. And Marcus Freeman, you asked him after the game, and he talked about how important that was for the team, for those guys to step up, and how unselfish they were and how ready they were when their number was called. So though I did want to jump in there with that thought.
Yeah, and that was another thing I think we were asked about at some point on a Football Never Sleeps is is Notre Dame in danger of losing these linemen before the playoff? Like these are the things we were getting asked after the A&M game. But I mean, obviously a testament to Rocco Spindler and Pat Coogan staying ready, being ready, not taking the demotion as a death sentence and being prepared to step up when asked. And certainly you couldn't have predicted that the injuries would have happened the way it is, but I think it does. I think you're probably feeling a little bit more comfortable when it's guys that are experienced coming off the bench than maybe guys that are getting thrown in there for the first time. So it worked out today for Notre Dame. We'll see how it goes moving forward, how much those guys are needed, depending on the severity of the injuries to Craig and Schrouth.
Could I ask you two more questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Notre Dame plays Miami. They're 0-2. They played really good defense. They haven't scored a lot. What are your thoughts about how you feel like Notre Dame is going to show up for that home game next week?
They have to, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame has made us look bad before, but it being your next, granted, it's not your next game, but it is your next home game. It's also the same conference. Like, it's like, come on, if we can't like show you the parallels between what can happen with Northern Illinois and Miami of Ohio, like something is seriously wrong. So I would expect Notre Dame to show up motivated, ready to go, and be able to handle Miami of Ohio. Obviously, you can't have mistakes. That was a big part of today, even though Riley Leonard wasn't fantastic throwing the football. He wasn't turning the ball over. That's what really killed Notre Dame against Northern Illinois. And protect the football and know what you're capable of and not try to play beyond yourself. So I think things should set up to allow Notre Dame to handle Miami next week. But obviously, we know that things can go sideways.
The other question I want to ask you is your thoughts on Marcus Freeman. I mean, he's still squarely a curiosity or a doubt or whatever. He's in the middle of this storyline right now because of the wild swings of the start to this season. And I'm wondering, did your opinion change at all today about where Marcus is headed as a head coach this season?
Not hugely. I think what's interesting to me is that in that post-game press conference, there's so many questions, whether it's to Marcus Freeman or the other players, almost trying to relitigate the Northern Illinois game and try to compare like what happened this week that didn't happen last week. And there's only so much that those guys can say. They knew that they messed up and they fixed it. They're not gonna. I don't know. It's just they have to keep moving forward, I guess, is the best way to put it. And I think that's the attitude that those guys are taking. And I don't know how much longer those kind of questions will linger. It's something that we're always going to want to know, like, how did this happen? But I don't know that we're going to get obvious answers or anyone's going to want to do anything. I mean, because there's this whole thing of, well, we overlooked them, and then, well, how'd you overlook them? Versus it's like, well, we just practice hard. It's mostly cliche stuff. I don't know, like, to what end Notre Dame overlooked Northern Illinois. Obviously, they didn't play to their best ability, and so it's easy to point to we didn't prepare well. But what does that mean? And Marcus Freeman said he was pretty blunt. He's like, I'm not sure that I saw things that were vastly different this week than I did the previous week, because if I saw those the previous week that were like question marks, I would have highlighted them and made sure we corrected them, and that didn't happen. So it's not like, I don't think coaching is as black and white as some people want to make it seem when you're trying to figure out what went wrong. And so I think what needed to happen happened. Notre Dame moved forward with a very impressive victory, did everything you could. I mean, you couldn't really ask much more other than maybe Riley Leonard throwing 80-yard bombs down the field in beating Purdue and handling their business and getting back to playing the football that they were expected to play this season.
I will end my part of this with a little story. Bob Knight actually came up with an answer to something very similar to that. Notre Dame or Indiana lost to Purdue in its regular season finale. Oh gosh, this was in 92 when they went to the Final Four. They got shipped out to Boise, Idaho, had to play Shaquille O'Neal and LSU, which was a 7 seed somehow. Indiana was a 2. And Bob Knight was asked how they changed the mindset from losing to Purdue to being able to beat Shaquille O'Neal and a much better LSU team. And Bobby Knight made up an answer. He said, we put their feet in ice buckets until their brain waves changed, and we called it cerebral reversal. So maybe that's what got into Notre Dame this week.
Yeah, I'll let you ask Marcus Freeman on Monday if they practice any cerebral reversal this past week preparing for Purdue.
Does that mean we need to end the show now?
Yeah, well, we need a cerebral reversal of the show maybe. But before we get out of here, I wanted to remind our viewers about our partner Autograph. You can now find Inside ND Sports content on the Autograph app, which is free to download on Android and iOS devices. There are many cool tools and features in the app, easy for me to say at 2 a.m., including the daily replay. So if you get there on Monday morning, you open up the app, it's going to give you highlights of stories that this is what you missed yesterday. This is the things that you want to read about this morning. It's a pretty neat tool and a cool way to sort of peruse through Notre Dame content that you may have missed. You can download the app using the QR code at the bottom of our screen or by using the link listed in the video description. From there, go find our content in the Notre Dame community. Make sure you use referral code INDS so Autograph knows that we sent you. Make sure you subscribe to our channel here on YouTube for free. Subscribe to InsideNDSports.com with a 30-day free trial using promo code NDYT. And let us know your biggest takeaways from Saturday's win. All right, that is all from us, and we will see you Monday night for Football Never Sleep.